Hey there Facebook, it is Vanessa here again, your motivational speaker, trainer and head coach from Live, Love, Give. And today's message is all about dropping your expectations of others and ultimately raising your standards within. And I definitely want to dive into this one in terms of sharing a bit of a story and a bit of background into, where I've come from in terms of, so it's going to be a bit of a relationship story that I definitely want to share with you guys. And I definitely want to, explain this in terms that you're not just using in your relationships, but you're ultimately bringing this concept all around emotional intelligence into every day of your life. And ultimately, it's all around being a leader in our emotional state. So the story I wanted to share with you guys today, I felt kind of highlights this point on the relationship front. And ultimately, it was a few years ago when I was in a relationship, my then relationship, it was the beginning of that one. And at the time, what I was struggling with most is that when my partner, whenever he was like feeling upset, it made me upset. And whenever he was happy, I was happy. Whenever he was angry, I was angry, like whatever. And I was such a follower towards his emotional state. And I was really struggling with that because, I just felt kind of out of control, out of this emotional state. And, it was well-intentioned, that whole concept of, oh, but whatever makes you happy makes me happy, right? And it's kind of like a beautiful, well-intentioned way of being, but it's so disempowering. And the real challenge came in from the aspect of him doing the same for me. And so I want to explain this kind of conflict that we were consistently getting in hope that you guys out there can resonate with it, because when we can notice our patterns, we can change them and shift them and ultimately have a bit of a laugh about them. Because what was actually happening at that time was that one of us, he had that same concept. Whenever I was happy, he was happy, sad, he was sad, all that sort of stuff. And so what happened was we were so focused on wanting the other person to be in a good emotional state that what happened was when there was poor energy or low emotional state, what would actually happen is we would get into conflict about who brought the poor energy first. And so it became, that one of us would have some sort of negative energy and we'd bring it into the relationship dynamic, and we would, the other person would feed off that energy to the point where we didn't know where it came from and who was to blame, and that would become the conflict at heart. So it'd be, well, you're feeling bad and you're making me feel bad, Can you relate to that, where you just start getting into, the reason why one of you was feeling in this negative emotional state had nothing to do with the conflict that you're about to have, but because you're in that negative emotional state and you're reliant on the other person to be a leader in the emotional state that you're going to live in, then ultimately you get into this like battle and this definite magnification of everything that could be negative, and ultimately you make matters so much worse because you're just magnifying it and you're resisting their negative state of emotion. So you can't even help and support them with what actually triggered that for them, because you're so wrapped up in trying to gain certainty about who's to blame and doing whatever you can at all cost to avoid that person who has to take responsibility, being you. That, my friends, is the absolute definition of no or lack of emotional intelligence. There's no emotional intelligence going on in those scenarios whatsoever. But we get so caught up in it and we're so in our emotional state and we're so hyper-focused on the other person snapping out of it, getting into a good emotional state. So finally we can feel happy and we can just relax and we can just be the perfect people that we are, and we get so caught up in it. And ultimately it is the most disempowering thing that we can do in our lives is to handball the responsibility of our emotional experience to somebody in the external, because you cannot control anything out there. All you have control over is what you're going to make things mean and the actions you're going to take as a result. So that's really, what I want to dive into. I've just used that sort of scenario and story to highlight how we actually need to drop expectations of others and take full responsibility and raise our standards. Because if you think about it, the only thing that will negate, that kind of conflict is when we take full ownership and responsibility for our own emotional state. We're not followers, we become our own leaders. And from that place, we are able to help and support another person. Because if you think about any sort of negative emotional state that we can get caught up in, is always because we're afraid of something. There's always fear attached to all negative emotional states. And every single emotional experience that we have, we need to fully feel through. It's not about just being positive and just pretending that we're that way and we just try and run away and avoid the negative. We are human beings living the full spectrum of emotion. That's what makes life fulfilling. That's what gives us contrast to the good and the negative or whatever. And ultimately, when whatever we resist persists, right? Whatever we don't feel through, it stays there. So, the best thing that we can do for one another is to take full responsibility for whatever emotional state we've chosen to be in and take responsibility for feeling through that and get support if you need it, but you need to come with taking responsibility for where you're at and definitely taking ownership is your freedom. The moment you take full 100% responsibility for your own emotional state and well-being, the sooner you are free and the sooner you can be more of an inspiring person in the lives of those you love, rather than a manipulator who's trying to get them to feel a certain way so that you can feel a certain way. You've got to start with you. Determine what is the emotional experience that I want to generate in my life. Be it, do it. If you have a negative experience, move through it. Don't avoid it. Don't criticize it and judge yourself for it. Move through it. Find out where did it come from. What's it alerting me to? How can I learn from this? And how do I want to be feeling? And what are the sort of thoughts and beliefs and actions that I need to be taking in order to generate that kind of emotional state that I would much rather be in? So sometimes in order to get to the kind of positive emotional state that we all kind of want to live in, you have to feel through those more negative, challenging emotional experiences and take the value from them. There's always value in everything that we experience, should you choose to find it. And definitely one of the worst things that you can do in the scenario and the story that I shared with you, which ultimately used to, this challenge that my old partner and I would have, it totally got pushed, it got made even bigger because, and it lasted even longer because, we were trying to shift the responsibility and the blame to somebody else. And then what would also happen is if one of us did take responsibility, there was this expectation, hey, now I've taken responsibility, now you take responsibility. And so that's kind of like that giving to get. It's not going to work out, and then you start resisting that. So, isn't it funny how we can start with the real challenge, and then because of our own fears, ego, all the rest of it, we create and magnify all these different challenges so that we end up fighting about something completely different that had nothing to do with the initial negative energy, and we just create so much more drama in our lives than necessary. And definitely, I would challenge you guys to be the leader. Step up whenever you get caught in some sort of emotional, discord. Instead of like, hey, you take responsibility for your stuff and keep away from me, or hey, you should feel different, change how you're feeling, or you take it fully on and you're just all caught up in it and now you feel bad. You have to Be intentional about the kind of emotional states that are most living in your higher self. And that's not to avoid any negative emotions. It's to just know that every time you experience a negative emotion or somebody is in your presence with a negative emotion, you get to choose how you're going to move through it. You get to choose, am I going to move through this? And you have somewhere in mind that you want to get to. You know what those emotional states are that you ultimately want to be living in more congruently. And if there's somebody else that you want to support, then you've got to know that, you adding your fears to the mix and judging them because it's affecting you is only going to serve separation, disconnect, distrust. People need to feel understood in order to be able to move through and be free. If you hold space for somebody in their negative emotional experience, not buy into it, not validate it so that they're to the point of victimizing them, but ultimately just hold space. Ask them what they need. And I see this too many times in our relationships where we get so judgmental or we're so quick to solve it for them or so that we can just feel better and we don't have to deal with their crap, that we keep them stuck in their emotional experience. And, we're not supporting or helping them. We're actually being really selfish because we're not looking after our own emotional state well enough so that we're so fearful of them taking the leadership in our emotional state instead of us stepping up and being the leader in our energy and helping and supporting them to get to a higher, better place within themselves in their own time with zero expectations. And ultimately, when you take full responsibility for your emotional state and with zero expectations as to what responsibility they have to do or take or how they have to get out of it or anything, you drop all of that and you just focus on you stepping into your higher self, then ultimately, that is what changes the game. That is what emotional intelligence is. It's about making a situation better rather than worse based on your input to it. So you've got to be a leader, step up and go first. Doesn't matter who goes first, just do it. And it doesn't matter how many times you're the one who goes first. I hear that a lot. We have to just not keep tally, not keep score. Just go for it. If you can step up, quicker and better, then go for it, and be the leader and help and support others. So I've been going off a little bit on that one today. I really hope that it's resonating with you guys. I hope me sharing that little piece was helpful, supportive. I hope you could recognize yourself in it, maybe have a little bit of a laugh at yourself for getting caught up in such, those emotionally unintelligent conflicts that we all as human beings are gonna, get into at some point. And I definitely want to check in with you guys and see who's been able to join me. And as I say, every single day, just to make sure that if I'm catching any new people, I definitely want to make sure that you know that you are super, super welcome to come and join us over in the Limitless Potential Inner Circle Facebook community. Beautiful like minds reaching to a new level of their potential, and they want to help, support, encourage, and challenge you to do just that as well. So if you want to be surrounded by some amazing human beings from across the globe, make sure that you click on the link above, request to join, and I shall definitely approve you into that amazing group. And I've got Sam and Hassani and Moises and Gary and NeoVio. Hope I say that right. And Billy and Moises, thank you so much. And Marlon. And Judy's here, and Stephen and Letty. Always, always good to see you, and I'm loving that you're enjoying today's topic. And Vicky and Andy, and loving that this is resonating with you, Letty. And Oscars, awesome to see you. And Gary and Sam, blame and conflict drains energy. Absolutely. So what if we could, instead of trying to gain certainty and shift responsibility, then all that time and energy we waste back and forth. Have you ever got caught up in one of those mindless, where you get to the point where you're so burnt out emotionally, you forget why you even were in this argument or conflict. I've been there, and I just that's not being emotionally intelligent, it's not serving, it's wasted energy. But imagine channeling that same amount of energy into owning and taking ownership and responsibility for your entire emotional existence, and taking that expectation and that power out of anybody in your external world and shifting it into, where's the lesson here? Or how can I best support this person that I love? You know, all those different things that we could be utilizing that energy for, instead of getting caught up in trying to like win the battle that's totally unwinnable. You know, even if you do win that battle and the other person takes the responsibility, you're not growing, and there's that deeper part of you that knows you've not been operating as your higher self, so you never win that way anyway. So absolutely, completely agree with you there, Sam, definitely. And Jamie's here, and Wayne and Ricardo. I try to raise standards daily, but there is always some event that affects me. Yeah, so Ricardo, what I would say to you is shift your language in that, because life is full of what I like to call opportunities for growth. You know, opportunities that serve you for the betterment of yourself. So when we think about, you know, that we're always trying to get ahead, but then something always brings us down, that's what we find. But if you shift that, because yeah, life's full of challenges, and you're always going to have those events, those people, those circumstances that absolutely challenge you. Particularly, I like to think, and it's kind of my experience, or what I tend to notice, is that every time I have a new level of growth, I raise to my next standard, I'm thrown something that will kind of put a spanner in the works and test me. So if you look at it like a test, like it's like, oh, I'm so dedicated to my own personal growth, fulfillment, and ability to contribute at higher levels. I raise my standard. I expect the challenge. I know the challenge is inevitable. It's going to come at me. And I look at that challenge as, yes, another opportunity to test me, to grow stronger, to break through, because you know it and I know it. Every single one of those challenges in our lives, if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have learnt the lessons. We wouldn't be the people. All that stuff we've heard a billion times, but it's true. You know, we have to be able to, you know, recognize and see those events that look like they're obstacles that get in our way as the necessary opportunities that we need in order to continue our growth and solidify what we've been learning. So I so appreciate you being here, Ricardo, and thanks so much for sharing. And Tony's here, and David, leading the pride of learns. Leading the pride of learns. Yeah, I don't know, my brain might not be working, so I didn't quite pick up what you mean there, but I love you being here, David, always, and sharing your words here. And Sam, my life transformed last year by taking personal emotional responsibility and accountability. Wow, that's beautiful to hear. I love that, Sam. And I'd love to hear more about your story. Sounds like you've had some massive growth in that past year. And yeah, I definitely know, like, from personal experience, the sooner you take responsibility, full responsibility and ownership for your own emotional state, you get intentional about what your higher self, how that wants to handle your emotional state, how it wants to break through, move through emotions, how it wants to support others on that journey and be a leader. The more intentional you get and the more you take responsibility, the more in control and empowered you are of the things that you can be in control of, and not, you know, just, you know, feeling like you're getting some sort of false security in the ability to manipulate another person's emotional state so that you can feel better, you know. So I love that you're on that journey, Sam. That's awesome. And Alexandria, awesome. And Spady and Eric and David, breakthrough to peaceful planes. Absolutely. You know, that inner peace comes from taking full ownership, because you're not having to manage anything that you can't control. All you have to manage is everything that you can control, and it's always internal. And it's a whole lot less overwhelming when you realize that and you get onto that journey. You create that kind of inner peace. But you know what? It's also twofold, because when you show up and you have that kind of inner peace that only can come from you taking full responsibility of your own emotional state and being intentional about the kind of human being you want to be, when you come with that level of peace, you automatically negate, you create this kind of energy that helps others step more fully into their peace. That's being a leader. You know, when you're a leader in that truth and you're not trying to change things that you can't control in order for you to feel good, which just feels like just generates this neediness and, you know, kind of restrictive energy for the people around you, then ultimately you're free to be in that peaceful place, or operating through those peaceful planes there, David, and definitely inspiring others and giving others, you know, an opportunity to see what's possible. So I love that. And thank you for your kind words there, Andy and Jace and Andy. I've mastered me. I love that. And it, you know, mastering yourself is such, you know, it's a constant journey that I don't believe we ever get off. You know, we're always constantly evolving and growing and learning more about what we do want, what we don't want, all of that great stuff, and definitely continuing that process of mastering whoever you're stepping into and becoming. So I love that, Andy. And Stephen, you have to work with the negative and make the most positive out of the situation and get the best out of the experience for you. Absolutely. You guys are always hearing me talk about, you know, those gifts wrapped in sandpaper, you know, those negative emotional experiences or situations that always inevitably are going to show up through the entire course of our lives. You're never going to be free of them. And what we do though, in the moment, it's often hard to see the positive, the gift when you're caught up in it. But hopefully you go on the journey of shortening the time period for you to learn the lesson, to bring the positive to the negative, you know, however you want to term that. I actually don't really believe that there's any negative for the word, you know, ways of being, emotional states, because I do think that we all have to feel the full entire spectrum of human emotion. And when we deem positive emotions, negative emotions, I use that terminology because we can all know what we're talking about. But if I go a level deeper, I don't like that terminology because it reinforces to people that there are negative emotions that make you wrong for feeling them. And remember what I said, whenever we resist something, whenever we judge ourselves for an emotional experience, we keep it trapped, you know, and that it just keeps stacking and stacking, and we never really fully feel through it. And definitely those both sides of the spectrum give us contrast so that we can have, you know, those positive experiences, negative experiences, all the rest of it. So I love that, Stephen, and super appreciate your words here. And yes, anti-congruent is well cool. I love it. And Eduardo and Scott and Linda, awesome. And Letty, be supportive in a real relationship. Difficult sometimes, Vanessa. However, thank you. Excellent. Take note. Oh, awesome. It totally is it is the most challenging place to be your most supportive, particularly in your intimate relationship, because there's so much involved. There's so much emotion involved. There's so much depth that you're wanting to get to. This person oftentimes knows you better than anybody else in the entire world. And so, definitely it's hard to get to that place of being fully supportive, but you have to take the expectations away from anybody else, no matter who they are that you're in relationship with, and shine the light back on you, because that puts you in an empowered state of being where you can grow. And the best thing, if you want to really have impact and influence in your relationships, you have to go on the journey of owning your own emotional state and being intentional and being responsible for that. That is the best strategy, rather than trying to get the other person to change. And from that place, when you're strong and centered within yourself, and granted, you're going to have up and downs and, you know, potentially behave less than emotionally intelligent than you would expect of yourself. It's hard to be supportive in those moments, but you need to just get to that place so that you can ultimately show the other person what's possible, be the leader of the energy, and not add to the magnification of it. So absolutely, Letty, thank you, and Cornell and Ramon and Billy, thank you for your kind words there. And Ricardo, I try to raise standards daily, but there is always some event that affects me. Total responsibility. I know this. Everything depends on what I do, but it's difficult not to feel what happens around me. Absolutely. And that's kind of the battle that we're all experiencing, but at the end of the day, we just need to term those external things around us as not this like, oh, they're taking away from my growth and everything good in my life, but actually, oh, another opportunity here. This is going to add to my growth, to my betterment. And when you can have that kind of shift in mentality, you're no longer in resistance to all those people that you get caught up in their emotional states or the circumstances or whatever. And you look at things with a clear mind. There's no positive, negative. It's like, well, what can this add to me? You determine what things mean. So you might as well stop resisting and determine that everything is happening for a reason and a purpose that always serves you. You are the one who has to find what that reason is. And I love that, Ricardo. You're sharing just such truth that we can all definitely relate to, I'm sure. And Dustin's here and Joanne. That was great. Would love to join. Awesome. Definitely click on the link above. Join us in the Limitless Potential Inner Circle. We'd love to have you, Joanne. And good day to you too, Dustin. And Sam, so grateful. Love you. Oh, thank you, Sam. And I'm back. Oh my gosh, the internet just cut out like it did yesterday. It's painful. Much love to you, Sam. And Brandon's here. And Jamie, you're so welcome. And Matthew and Letty. Thank you, Vanessa. Love has to be celebrated in relationships. Yes, a small word to say, I love you, so difficult. Yes, so powerful. Thank you. Absolutely. I'm loving that today's message is resonating with you, Letty. Thanks for being here. And Cheryl's here. Awesome. And Ricardo, thank you. So it is like I know that something bad will happen and I will be prepared for what appears on day by day and not accept the feeling and just learn from it. Yeah, absolutely. But, really, I wouldn't even term it something bad. So that's the kind of language that is actually really powerful. It's more powerful than we think. But terming it, get away from negative or bad or painful or even challenge can be, not so great at times, but instead term it as a necessary opportunity that you need on your pathway to growth, and definitely, yes, learn from it. Use it as your way to build higher levels of self-awareness. How is this person affecting me? How am I letting their energy affect me? How am I letting this situation affect me? What am I thinking and believing that is generating my own emotional experience? Everything is born in the mind. So every time you're feeling low in energy or you're not really liking your emotional state, ask yourself, what is it that I'm thinking and believing right now that's causing me to feel this way? It's all in there. So you have full control and power to choose which kind of beliefs and thoughts you're going to even buy into. Are you going to question them or are you going to let them determine the course of your life? So you have the highs, the lows, and you're kind of out of control. Or are you going to stand guard at the gateway of your mind and watch what's coming in, what's going out, and question it? What would my higher self do in this moment? Is this really true? And what else could this mean that would be more empowering, that would make me feel a whole bunch better? You're totally in control. And so stop disempowering yourself by expecting others to, be a certain way or be in a certain emotional state or circumstances to be a certain way or never change or whatever, and actually take responsibility and expect that you're going to be hit with a bunch of opportunities. So hope that was helpful, Ricardo. And Jared's here, and Letty. You're so welcome. And Andres and Ari. Awesome, guys. So that really was my message for you guys today. I want you to think about dropping your expectations of others and ultimately raising your standards within yourself. That you will take full responsibility. You will question your thoughts. You will determine what you want to start thinking and believing that leads to an empowered state, and you will be a leader in your energy and actually contribute to the lives of others as opposed to magnifying all their fears. So I hope that was really valuable to you guys. I super appreciate every single one of you who's been able to join me today. You guys absolutely rock my world and light me up. I love engaging with you and interacting with you, and I really, really hope that I'm adding some value to you today. So if you have any ways that you feel like could be adding more value to you, if you feel like there's anything that's going on in your life right now that you would love to hear another perspective on, you'd like me to talk into, definitely drop me a comment below, and I would love to see what I can do in terms of adding more value to you. And that's it from me today, guys. So I'm sending you all of my love, light, blessings, gratitude, energy, enthusiasm, everything extraordinary coming to you, to wherever you are in the world today. I hope it's absolutely beautiful and amazing, and I cannot wait to see you guys tomorrow.